The boots hit your door at 3:12 a.m. not knocking. Kicking. 3 times. Then silence. Then the handle. You are 23 years old, and you have been awake for 41 hours. The motel room smells like industrial cleaner and old carpet. There is a water stain on the ceiling shaped like a hand. You have memorized it. It is the only thing in this room that has never threatened you. You do not move from the bed. Moving is the wrong answer. You learned this 7 weeks ago, in a government building with no windows on the 14th floor of a federal office tower, when a man in a grey suit explained your options in the flat, rehearsed tone of someone who has explained this before and will explain it again. Option 1, the sealed juvenile record becomes unsealed. Felony distribution. 2 prior counts of accessory. The judge has seen your file. He is not sympathetic. Option 2, you cooperate. The man in the grey suit used the word cooperate the way architects use the word integrate, technically precise, morally empty. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a photograph of a man named Delgado. 47 years old. Regional logistics. The man in the grey suit said Delgado trusted people who made deliveries without asking questions. You had been doing exactly that for 14 months. You signed on page 11. You initialed pages 4, 6, and 9. You did not read all of it. There was no time to read all of it, and even if there had been, the language would not have helped you understand what you were agreeing to become. The boots belong to 2 men named Tico and Marcos. They are not there to hurt you tonight. They are there to see if you flinch. You don't. That is the correct answer. Tico nods once and the door closes and you lie back down and stare at the hand-shaped water stain until the room gets grey with morning. You are in. You don't celebrate. There is nothing to celebrate. You are at the bottom of something that has no visible ceiling, and the only direction is deeper. 3 months pass. Your handler's name is Reyes. Agent Reyes. You call him Marcus because he told you to and because a first name creates the illusion of trust, which is itself a tool. Marcus meets you every 11 days in a parking garage on the east side or a diner on Route 9, or once, memorably, in the back of a laundromat while your cover clothes turned in a machine for 40 minutes. You report what you hear. You report where the trucks go. You report which names get used and which names get avoided. You do not editorialize. Marcus does not want your interpretation. He wants raw data and he wants it accurate, and he reminds you, each time, that your cooperation agreement contains a clause about material omission. You understand the clause. You do not omit. By month 4, Delgado asks you to drive a different route on Wednesdays. You say yes. By month 6, you are sitting in rooms where things are discussed that are not deliveries. You carry a recorder the size of a lighter. It is taped to the inside of your left forearm with medical adhesive that leaves a rash. You have had the rash for 91 days. You do not scratch it in front of people's month 8. You are introduced as someone who can be trusted. That sentence, someone who can be trusted, lands differently than you expect. It doesn't feel like a lie in the moment. It feels like a role you have filled correctly. You note the distinction in a way you don't fully examine. Marcus gives you a new phone. Encrypted. You are told to keep it powered down unless initiating contact. You sleep with it under the mattress. You sleep with your personal phone face up on the nightstand so that if someone checks, they see what they expect to see. You have 2 phones, 2 routines, 2 versions of every conversation you have. You adapt to this faster than you expected. That, too, is something you don't examine. Why the end of year 1, you understand the architecture. The cartel is not chaos. That is the first thing civilians get wrong. It is a logistics company with extreme enforcement mechanisms. There are schedules. There are budgets. There are middle managers who care about efficiency and despise waste and hold grudges about accounting discrepancies the way any regional director would. The violence is not random. It is procedural. It is a cost control mechanism. You understand this because you have been inside the procedure. On the federal side, the system has its own architecture. There are forms for everything. Contact reports. Intelligence summaries. Threat assessments. Every meeting with Marcus generates a document. Every document enters a file. The file is reviewed quarterly by someone you have never met and will never meet. Your value is quantified in intelligence yield. Marcus has explained this without explaining it, through the way he responds when you bring him something significant versus something routine. Significant gets a nod and a follow-up question. Routine gets a form and a goodbye. You learn to package your information the way the system wants it. Specific. Actionable. Documented. You also learn that what you leave out shapes the story as much as what you include. Not omission exactly. Framing. If Delgado says something incriminating in a room where two other men also said incriminating things, the report focuses on Delgado. Because that is the objective. Because the file has a target and the target is Delgado and everything else is context or noise depending on how the sentence is structured. You structure sentences carefully now. The temperature in the parking garage where you meet Marcus is always cold. Even in July, the concrete holds winter in it. You wear a jacket regardless of season. The jacket has an inner pocket where you keep a folded list of 8 names, the 8 people currently closest to Delgado. You update the list by hand every week. You destroy the previous version. You are 24 years old. You have not spoken to your mother in 7 months. Not because she is dangerous. Because every conversation is a variable and variables create exposure, and exposure is the word Marcus uses when he means the thing that gets you killed. You do not use the word killed. You say burned. Everyone says burned. Year 2 moves differently than year 1. In year 1, the tension was external: the boots, the recordings, the rash on your arm, the careful performance of being someone you are not. In year 2, the tension goes interior. Something in you has shifted into a configuration that doesn't shift back. You notice it in small moments. At a diner on Route 9, Marcus asks a routine question and you give a routine answer, and afterward you sit in your car for 11 minutes without turning the key. Not because you are afraid. Because you cannot remember, in that moment, which version of yourself just had that conversation. The one who works for Marcus. The one who drives for Delgado. The one who used to have an apartment with a couch and a television and a reasonable expectation that the week ahead would resemble the week behind. That last one is the one you have the most trouble locating. You have a woman. Had. Past tense is more accurate. Her name was Anna and she was patient for longer than patience was reasonable, and then she stopped calling and you let her stop because the alternative was explaining something you could not explain, and the thing you could not explain was everything. You sleep with a pistol under your ribs. Not metaphorically. Physically. Left side, between your arm and your chest. It is a Glock 19 registered to a name that does not appear on your cooperation agreement. You have never fired it at a person. You have thought, clinically and without drama, about the conditions under which you would. That kind of thinking has become ordinary. Delgado promotes you. Not formally. There are no titles, no ceremonies. But you are now in the room for conversations you were not previously in the room for. Your recorder captures more. Your value to Marcus increases. Your value to yourself is a calculation you have stopped running. N month 27, Marcus stops answering. Not immediately. Gradually, the way temperature drops, not all at once, but consistently, degree by degree, until you realize you are cold and cannot remember when the warmth left. First, the callbacks take longer. 24 hours instead of 4. Then 48. Then you leave a message on the encrypted phone and 3 days pass and the silence is a texture you can feel in your chest. You follow protocol. You use the secondary contact number. You get a voicemail. You use the emergency drop point, a specific notation in a specific format, a specific post office box, and you wait 6 days and nothing returns. Nothing returns. You are 25 years old, sitting in a car outside a motel in a city you have lived in for 8 months under a name that belongs to someone who died in 1987, and you understand, with the quiet, absolute clarity of a light being switched off, that the system has moved on. Not against you. That would require intention, and the system does not intend. It processes. You were a case file with a yield that was sufficient and then a yield that was diminishing and then a case file being reviewed by someone who has never met you and who, when reviewing the cost-benefit of your continued operation, identified a threshold. The threshold was you. You think about the 14 pages you signed. You think about page 11, specifically the clause you remember most clearly, the one that began: the cooperation of the undersigned is contingent upon continued operational value as assessed by the supervising agency. You remember the word assessed. You remember thinking it was bureaucratic language. You were right. Bureaucratic language is the most precise language there is, because it removes the human from the sentence entirely. You assessed as insufficient. You sit in that car for a long time. The Glock is under your left arm. The encrypted phone is off. Outside, a truck passes on the highway and the sound of it moves through you like something looking for a place to land. You have two choices. You have always had two choices. You understood this in the room with the grey suit and the photograph of Delgado, and you let yourself forget it because forgetting was the only way to do the work. Burn the evidence and disappear into a name that has no past and no future. Start from absolute zero in a city where no one knows any version of you. Or testify. Sign the next set of documents. Sit in the room. Put your hand up. Say the words. And then live, for however long live applies, with the knowledge that the people in those recordings know exactly what happened. You make the choice you make. I won't tell you which one. It doesn't matter to the system. The system has already filed your case. 3 weeks after you make your choice, a different car parks outside Delgado's Wednesday distribution point. The car contains a person who is approximately your age. The person is nervous in a way they are trying not to show. They are wearing a jacket with an inner pocket. They may or may not have a rash on their left forearm. They have signed on page 11. Delgado does not notice the change. Tico does not notice. Marcos, whoever Marcos is to the new person, whatever name he uses, has already filed the first contact report. It is in a system. The system processes it. Somewhere in a federal building with no windows on the 14th floor, a file closes and another file opens, and they are kept in the same archive and referenced by different case numbers, and the person who maintains the archive has a cup of coffee on their desk and a family photograph on their wall, and they go home at 5:45 most days, and they do not think about the gap between the two files. There is no gap, from their perspective. There is only continuity. You are not in the building. You are somewhere else, a different city, a different name, a window that looks out onto a street where trucks pass. Every truck sounds like something. You are not sure yet what it sounds like. Something unfinished. Something that moves through you and keeps moving. The hand-shaped water stain is in a motel in a city you no longer live in. Someone else is lying under it now. They are probably not sleeping either. The system does not require your sleep. The system does not require you at all. It never did. That was always the arrangement. You just needed 27 months to understand it.